So welcome back, and in this clip again I'll be talking about the very beginning of literary criticism. I hope you all know that everything in criticism, in fact in literature, begins with Aristotle, the great master. And if you remember, Aristotle was treated as a prophet during the Greek and Roman cultures, and he was treated as a philosopher during the medieval ages, and it was during the Renaissance that he was considered as a critic. Fine. So everything begins with Aristotle. Now before talking about Aristotle's definition of criticism, let me tell you something about the origin of this word criticism. Fine. See, this word criticism, it has been taken from a Greek verb, and that is kritein, 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 and it means to judge. And one who is skilled, who is adroit in the art of judging, is known as criticos. Kritikos. Criticos in Greek, criticus. Criticus. Criticus in Latin, and a critic in English. Fine. So one who is skilled in the art of judging is called a criticos in the Greek language, a criticus in the Latin language, and a critic in the English language. Right. Now again, let us go back to Aristotle. See, to Aristotle, criticism meant a standard of judging well. Means, if you judge any piece of literature with a standard, that is criticism. So for Aristotle, criticism meant a standard of judging well. Then let us sail towards Dryden. Dryden was the first person who used the word criticism in print. Fine. And he defined it as any formal discussion of literature. Any formal discussion of literature. So for Aristotle, criticism was a standard of judging well, and for Dryden, it is any formal discussion of literature, right? Then let us talk about Dr. Johnson, the greatest lexicographer of his age. See, Dr. Johnson defined criticism as the task of determining principles to evaluate the merits of a literary composition. And about a critic, he said that a critic is a person who is skilled in the art of judging literature, a man who is able to distinguish the faults and beauties of writing. So this is something which has been said by Dr. Johnson. Then Thomas Carlyle, he considered literary criticism as an interpretation and an assessment of merits of a work of art, right? You can have some more definitions given by some great masters, but I'm not talking about different definitions given by different masters in criticism. Now, on the basis of these 3 or 4 definitions which have been given by these great masters, we can say that criticism is a critical assessment of a literary or artistic work. It is, a critical assessment, it is a critical evaluation, and it is a critical interpretation of a literary work. Right. The other thing is that, you know, literary criticism does not mean to criticize any work of art. So criticism does not mean to criticize only. It means to observe the work and point out its beauties as well as its faults. So criticism means to point out not only the negative point but the positive points also. Fine. Then a critic is like a pathologist. Now, what is the function of a pathologist? See, a pathologist, he analyzes the blood of patients without taking note of their caste, religion, and color or race. In the same way, a critic also works like a pathologist. So, as a pathologist analyzes the blood of patients without taking note of their color, caste, and creed, in the same way, a critic analyzes a work of art without taking note of without taking note of the color, caste, and religion of its creator. It means a critic must be above any form of prejudice, right? Um, how can you forget Dr. Johnson? He was very prejudiced, and that's why he was very harsh on Milton and Henry Fielding. You can remember how harshly he criticized Milton's Paradise Lost and Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. Fine. So a critic must be above any kind of prejudice. Fine. Then Northrop Frye. If you remember, he wrote a paper, and the title of the paper is Archetypes of Literature. Now, in this paper, he compares criticism with physics. Now, try to understand this comparison. I mean, in this paper, he compares criticism with physics. How? See, as physics tries to find a system in the phenomena of nature and explains why and how they happen. In the same way, criticism also tries to explain the phenomena of literature. Now try to understand what happens in physics. See, uh, why does a hollow object, it floats, I mean, on the surface of water? And why does a solid object, it sinks? So I think this is the function of physics. I mean, this is done in physics. Why does a hollow object float on the surface of the water, and why does a solid object sink? So this is something, I mean, this is a kind of system, and I mean, this system is analyzed in physics. So physics tries to find a system in the phenomena of nature, in the phenomena of cosmos, and explains why and how they happen. So physics explains why does a hollow object float on the surface of water. Fine. And physics explains, you know, why milk starts boiling at a certain point of heat. Getting my point? So this is a comparison between physics and criticism. So as physics tries to find a system in the phenomena of nature and explains why and how they happen, in the same way, criticism tries to explain the phenomena of literature. Right. Now, uh, you know, any simple statement on criticism, it can be compared to an iceberg. You might have seen an iceberg, and its quality is that just a small part. It's small part, very small part. It remains out of water, and the big part, it remains below the surface of water. Right. So I'm saying that any simple statement on criticism can be compared to an iceberg. Now this statement is just one small part that is out of water, and the big part is a complex idea, and that is in the mind of the critic, and it lies submerged in the mind of the critic. I hope it is clear to you. Then there is a critic J.E. Spingarn. J.E. Spingarn. He says that criticism answers three questions. What are those? Number one, what the artist tries to express. Number two, how he has been successful in expressing that idea. And number three, was the idea worth expression? Was the idea worth expression? So these are the three basic questions, which are answered by criticism, or which are answered by a critic. Fine. Now, uh, see, I feel that serious discussion about the nature and function of criticism, it began with Eliot's essays in the Sacred Wood. It's a collection of some essays, I mean the Sacred Wood. So serious discussion about the nature and function of criticism, it began with the Sacred Wood, I mean a collection of essays written by T.S. Eliot. Now, in this collection, T.S. Eliot focused on comparison and an analysis in criticism. Fine. So, in this essay, Eliot talks about comparison and analysis in criticism. It means there must be comparison and there must be analysis in criticism. Fine. Because it's only with the help of comparison that you can find out the real worth of any text. Is that clear? Eliot basically said that criticism is not autotelic. Autotelic. It means, criticism is not something which is having an end or purpose in itself. Autotelic means having an end or purpose in itself. So Eliot feels that criticism is not autotelic, means it is not something which is having an end or purpose in itself. It means there is something beyond, criticism also. As we feel today that literary theory is everything and there is nothing, beyond literary theory. No, this is wrong. There is something beyond theory also. So there is something beyond criticism also, right? Then Ivor Winters, a new critic, he wrote The Function of Criticism, and in it, he finds or he feels that criticism is an actual union of analysis and evaluation. So to Ivor Winters, criticism is basically a kind of union, and this is the union of analysis and evaluation, right? Then there is one more new critic, and that is Austin Warren. Austin Warren. Now he tries to find that, actually he says that a critic's function is a search for order and the discovery of a systematic vision of the world. Right? I'm giving you some more definitions of criticism given by some great masters. We have talked about the ancient masters. Now let us talk about some modern masters also. See, Gerald Janet is a structuralist, and he says that criticism is, it's meta literature. Meta literature. It means criticism is a literature on a literature. So Janet feels that literary criticism is meta literature. It means it is a literature commenting on a literature. Say, for example, when you go through Hamlet and Macbeth, so these are the pieces of literature, right? And these pieces of literature have been observed or criticized or appreciated by some critics like A.C. Bradley, Alan Showalter, Wilson Knight, and others. Fine. So the fact is that these critics have commented on the original texts. It may be the text of Hamlet, it may be the text of Macbeth, or it can be any other text. Right. I hope the idea is very clear to you people. So Janet feels that criticism is meta literature, means it is a literature commenting on a literature. So Hamlet is a piece of literature, and what is Bradley has written, it is a comment on Hamlet, the text. Is that clear? Then Roland Barthes, he says that criticism is meta language, means it is a language commenting on a language. It is a language commenting on language. And you know very well that be it literary creation or be it literary criticism, in both the medium is language. So language is the medium, and with the help of this medium, everything is interpreted, everything is analyzed, be it literary creation or be it literary criticism. Fine. Then M.H. Abram, he says that author is God and critic is priest. Author is God and critic is priest, and the task of this priest is to decipher the writing of God. I mean, to uncode, the coded language of the author. Means the author writes something. So this may be a kind of code. So a critic has to break that code, or a critic has to uncode this coded language. And that's why he says that author is God and critic is priest, whose task is to decipher the writing of God. Right. Then Jacques Derrida, he's the founder of deconstruction, and in one of his interviews, he said that literary criticism is highly theoretical and more philosophical than literature itself. So this is something which has been admitted by Derrida in one of his interviews. What did he say? I repeat. He says that criticism is highly theoretical and more philosophical than literature itself. He further says that criticism is deeply rooted in a literary text. Now, this is very true at the present time. Hmm. Criticism is deeply rooted in a literary text and is not outside, the text, but within the text. Within the text. So today there is no entity of literature without literary criticism. So today literature is within criticism and criticism is within literature. Fine. So literary criticism is deeply rooted in a literary text. So it is not outside literature, but it is within literature. Getting my point. So these are some points in relation to literary criticism. I have given you the beginning of literary criticism. Now we'll see how this literary criticism it takes the form of literary theories. See, this is a journey, and the journey begins from Aristotle, I mean the Greek masters, and today it is in the form of modern critical approaches, right? So this criticism it has it has seen a journey. So I'll be talking about this journey in the next clip, how the time is changing, how the words are changing, how the world is changing, how everything is changing, how literature is also changing, how literature is also changing, right? These theories, somehow they have distorted the very face of literature. Today, on the basis of theory, you can defend a rapist. How can you forget, Philip Larkin's poem, Deceptions? Deceptions. So there he defends the rapist, and he defends the rapist quite easily, and that is possible only on the basis of this literary theory, right? So things are changing. Literary theory is giving a kind of liberty to we people to interpret literature in our own ways. Anyways, this is enough for today. So in the next clip, I'll be coming with these changes. I hope you'll enjoy, and if you have some queries, please let me know. And if you have some comments, again, you are most welcome. Thank you and have a good day.